The Rights to Ricky Sanchez podcast is presented by DraftKings Sportsbook. Sign up for DraftKings Sportsbook, download their top-rated app, and use promo code RTRS. You can play Sixers blackjack now in the DraftKings Casino. It's wild. And brought to you by Adam Kasabi, the official realtor of The Process, serving all of Delaware at processrealtor.com. LL Pavorsky Jewelers, where Rights to Ricky Sanchez listeners go and get engaged, and Kinetic Skateboarding. Get 9.1% off your first order with promo code Dave Silver. On today's show, the first half of the season is over. We'll do some grades for all the Sixers. The Ship of Theseus makes a comeback. B-Ball Paul gets hacked. A fantasy basketball controversy. And once again, we welcome, no, we don't, Michael Bivens. Was supposed to be on the pod again. He is not here. It is the Celtics fucking psyop mission to fuck with us.
It's working.
Yeah, it is working. We have to decide whether we have to ban him or not, because I think it should be on the table. Before we get going, we have a brand new video on our YouTube channel that is awesome. Mike O'Connor goes in and basically breaks down how Ben Simmons turned his season around. It's awesome. It's up on our YouTube channel now. Subscribe while you're there. Thank you to Mike. Thank you to CJ, our incredible video producer. And thank you to Body Bio, who sponsors Mike. And remember to use RTRS20 for 20% off your order at bodybio.com. Without any further ado, Amos and the chef.
We were right, y'all. We were right. Even when it went wrong, we were right. We was right, y'all. We were right. So say the name. Say the name. We were right, y'all. We were right. Even when it went wrong, we were right. We were right, y'all. We were right. So say the name. Say the name. Say the name.
Welcome to the Rights to Ricky Sanchez podcast. I'm Spike Eskin, along with a guy who never trusts a big butt and a smile. That is Mike Levin.
I used to.
Yep.
Until today, the first time.
Yeah. What a bummer.
But I will no longer trust a big butt nor a smile.
So, would you say that Michael Bivens is now banned from the Ricky?
I actually like CJ's pitch to have him come on every podcast and be disappointed every single time.
Right. That sounds like a win for me. So we look forward to having Michael Bivens on Thursday's pod. Why don't we start off with this? Because it happened this morning, and then we'll get to some other stuff. It was announced this morning that Joel Embiid will be donating his $100,000 that he will earn for making the All-Star team to 3 different homeless shelters in Philadelphia. Do you have the specific things there you'd like to?
This is just per Lauren Rosen, who works for the Sixers. The $100,000 donation will provide 15,000 meals, 4,000 items of clothing, care and treatment of 1,000 unhoused individuals receiving COVID vaccines, support for 30 unhoused families, funding for a 6-week summer camp for at-risk youth, and shelter for 300 teens in need, which, Joel, that's great. We love it.
The 3 organizations are Project Home, the Sunday Breakfast Mission, and Youth Service, Inc., and I have never been involved with Project Home or Youth Service, Inc., but Sunday Breakfast Mission is a great Philadelphia charity. I'm sure the other 2 are as well. So Joel has been very charitable since the pandemic started, and he hasn't stopped here. Just
Well, shaming the Sixers into
paying everyone,
paying their employees. Oh man, that ruled. That was a good time.
Yeah.
That was the time. I mean, like, obviously Joel knows how important he is, but I think that was a good crystallization of how much Joel matters more than anybody else. That he can just bully these billionaire owners into doing mostly whatever he wants. Even his nickname being the Process, I'm sure there's still people that work in that building that are not not pumped about it. Too many bad memories, too many brochures gone awry of season ticket pictures unused. But it's cool and good for Joel doing this. And it seems like he really, I feel like a lot of star players do this. It's not like it's just Joel.
Yeah, sure.
But like it feels like he really cares about the city of Philadelphia, which is cool.
It just shows the parallels between him and the fans during this, in that he is both pro Sixers and anti Sixers at the same time, which is what he's doing. What he did before, completely willing to call them out. And he is, and the charitable stuff to make sure that anything that he does negatively is balanced by doing something incredibly positive for the community. I do actually believe he is smart, and he always has been very savvy publicly, not in a gross way, but I think he understands. But I actually do think he really likes it in Philadelphia. I think a lot of athletes say it. I don't want to name names, and I don't actually believe it, but I actually believe it with him, right?
I think my impression of how athletes feel about Philly is like when they're here, it is cool. I don't think it's a destination as far as like where they're going to go, but it's also not one of the places, Indiana, Milwaukee, Utah, whatever, where they're like, I got to get Oklahoma City, I got to get out of here. Kind of thing. I think Philly is like, if I'm here, cool. If I get traded there, cool. But I'm not picking it over, Miami or Houston or New York or LA.
I agree with that. And I also think that there are some, the way it is here with the fans and the media and all that kind of stuff, there's some that thrive on it and there's some that fucking hate it. And I think we know the lists of both. But Joel clearly thrives on how it is.
I think that when Joel sits, especially if he sits for a long time, like he misses like, a couple weeks or something, I feel like he should be allowed to boo. I feel like he's so close to the fans.
He would be best.
And the needing to bully the team. I feel like he should be able to sit in the stands and boo with other people. That should be allowed and encouraged.
You just want him to boo Danny Green.
No, Spike, you're not going to do this. I like Danny Green.
You don't.
He is an absolute lunatic, 2 to 3 plays a game. And I like him, and I think he's helpful. And I was reluctant. I'm sometimes reluctant to move him in a Kyle Lowry deal, which is the only way that a Kyle Lowry deal would happen. But I am now on the side of Kyle Lowry is more important, even though I do like and appreciate Danny Green, both the vibes that he brings, the championship experience, and I even like sometimes when his brain cuts out for any late game situations when he's loses all control of his arms and limbs and decision-making apparatus.
Mike, I'm a master at saying that I like things that I don't like, and I can spot this from a mile away. So I wanted to do I wanted to give a compliment to the listeners of the pod. Our email has been incredible all season long and continues to be. There is no way we will get to all of the mailbag questions. I don't think, but thank you for all of them. Keep them coming. They're wonderful. I wanted to say that before we get going. I wanted to do grades for the coach, the GM, and the players who have really played for first half so far. I think some of them are obvious and some of them are a little less obvious. I wanted to start at the very top with Morey. And I think for me, the instant grade is you go, oh, hey, he's done a great job. I think it does track back to whether you think he should have done the Harden deal or not, even in retrospect, even with as well as Ben has played. Harden has played pretty well too. I think I would give him, it'd be hard for me to give him anything lower than an A- though. I think. I still wish they had done the Harden deal, but the way they're playing and what he's done so far, and even the position they are in terms of assets versus the other competitors is still pretty favorable. I think I would go A-. What about you?
It's hard to. He really did like a couple things and then has pretty much sat back for now. Which I think is, he's been around long enough. I think patience is super important, especially in this position, and maybe something that the previous collaborative regime didn't really have. I feel like Brian had it a little bit, and then it became a let's go, like, always hit the gas. We're making 6 trades a year. This isn't working. We got to move it on, like that kind of thing. Which I think also has its benefits. Like, it certainly weren't shy about shaking things up. But I think Daryl reorganized things pretty much right after he got here and made a couple honestly safe, solid picks in the draft. And it's seeing it pay off nicely and go from there. I think it's kind of an incomplete because it's just like it's not early. There has just not much has been done, but I think the Sixers are the best team in the East. Everybody seems to be happy and playing well. I think it's an A. I think as far as currently goes, I think that the Harden trade was the one almost, it seems, and he's obviously incredible. And some people forgot how incredible he was during the trade talks when he was not playing as well. But I don't think you can blame him for not selling the whole future, and every last asset, including Ben, for a guy who might not have wanted to be here or whatever it is.
Doc Rivers, you first.
A-. I think Doc's been great. I think coaches get credit, coaches get blame for sometimes things out of their control, but everybody seems to be happy, having a good time. First in the East. The vibes are strong. He has been, he's coached what? This is his 4th head coaching job, and I think he's been at every place for at least 4 or 5 years. So he figures to be here for another 4 or 5 years. So it's the kind of thing where it's like he knows what he wants, he knows what he likes, and he's, I think, a little bit stubborn sometimes in what he wants to get out of it, but. Hard to argue. I think he's tinkered. He hasn't just gone with guys forever. He's tried to get rookies in there and taking them out and all that stuff. I feel relatively to very positive about how Doc has done.
Yeah, he changes it up a lot, even rotation wise. We came from a time where everything used to be pretty set, pretty regular, and it hasn't been that way. I don't think you can give him anything less than an A-, B+ so far. I think if we have something to criticize him for, I think it will come later this season. I think that stubbornness, we've seen other coaches, and Doc in the playoffs as well, but we've seen other coaches like Budenholzer, I think, comes to mind, stick with something even when it stops working in the playoffs, and you just don't have time to do that. And I wonder if we'll see that, but A- I think is fine. I don't think you could give him anything lower than that. And B gets an obvious A+, right? I mean,
oh yeah,
yeah. I mean that's just
come on,
just obvious. Tobias Harris, I think has to get an A. I guess you could say, well, I wish he was shooting 2 or 3 more threes a game, but that comes back to expectation, and he has played beyond my expectations so far this year, even though that is not part of it. Just the offensive sort of want to and willingness to be aggressive. He's been consistent. I don't think you could give Tobias anything lower than an A based on what he is, right?
Yeah, look, Tobias, loyal listener, big fan of me personally, using me as motivation all the time. So I would say I don't want him to get complacent. So I'm going to give him an A- and shoot for a couple more threes per game, letting those things off, keep moving the ball quickly, passing it, take those chances. I look like no complaints about the defense, that. But yeah, I would like to see a couple more threes get off quickly. But he's been excellent. It's been great. It's been a great and mostly uneventful first half of the season, which is extremely rare.
Honestly, it's why the mailbag has come into has been helpful for us, because when they're just like play good, you just end up doing the same podcast every time. So I appreciate everyone's idea.
Which I don't mind. I'm happy to do.
Yeah.
I'm happy to talk about Matisse opening up a Korkmaz 3 in the corner. Like, I'm happy to do that every podcast. I don't know if people like it, but that's what I get excited about.
Ben Simmons.
Kind of interesting. I mean, like he was struggle-ish and a little bit lost for the first month. What is it? Month or so of the season.
Yep.
And just kind of looked. The defense was there, but it didn't seem like offensively his role was, something he felt confident in or anything. And since the fourth quarter of that Celtics game, he's been absolutely incredible, as Mike O'Connor's video alludes to, how he adjusted and changed that. I've legitimately loved the last, however long it's been, month of Ben's season. I think it's exactly everything I've really wanted from him since he got into the league, which is like be a 6'10" monster, both in transition, on defense, be as versatile as he is, push the pace, and then also be able to score kind of in isolation or in the post in the half court. And I think that opens so many things up, allows when Embiid trusts him to be able to do that, then Embiid can space the floor a little bit and they can just like mix it up. It's everything I've really ever wanted him. And he has nice touch inside. He's finding in his, from like the 4 to 10 foot range, he's feeling like pretty confident there. It's been great. I mean, so the first half of the season is really a tale of two things for Ben, but as of right now, like, I'm giving him current Ben A, early season Ben like B-.
Oh, I think early season Ben was lower than a B-. I mean, he was
maybe.
Yeah. I think
they're still winning, so I guess I couldn't be too upset.
Yeah, I'm going to give him a B, and from essentially the same reasons. I don't think that. I think he was pretty. We mentioned CJ. I was talking to him beforehand about Mike O'Connor's video. It's pretty simple for Ben this year. Like, he was playing worse than he normally plays until he started playing better, and now he's playing better than he has played in the past. So I think he was a pretty significant notch below what we have expected from him when he was bad, and I think he's been a solid notch above what he has been previously. He'd been at times, but this is the best we've seen of him. The only note I would have is that it does seem like and I know these can go up and down, but the free throw attempts have gone back down for the last 5 or 6 games. They're hovering between 2 and 5. So I think he could be at the line 8 times a game, like, pretty easily, and I think he should do that. So, Seth Curry.
I mean, Seth's been okay. Like, his percentages are still really good. He is extremely helpful on the court. I think still the best 2-man combination on the team is Embiid and Curry, as far as like statistically when they're on the court together. But limited player because of how he's not that fast. He's definitely not that big, and he's not that quick. He's not that quick at getting a shot off, I'll say. And so there's times when it's like it seems like that needs to be a shot in the NBA. That is an open shot in today's NBA, like, and he should be taking it. And I think too many times he doesn't, whether that's like a step in or a side step or just a pass or whatever it is. So it's a little frustrating in that sense, but I think we talked about it last time. Like, you're kind of not going to change who these guys are inherently, as like, to their core. If they're not comfortable taking those shots, then they're probably just never going to do it. But I think he's still been helpful, so I'll give him and I think he's been better on defense than we expected. I'll give him like a B+, I think.
I think that's fair. He's, you have to judge them on a scale of what they are, and Seth Curry is probably a high-level bench player who is starting. Yeah. And when that happens, you end up seeing their flaws, and we could want him to shoot quicker all we want, but he's been in the league, 6 years or 7 years. He's not going to shoot quicker. This is who he is, and I think overall he has been a pretty significant net positive for the team. And he is. I didn't feel this way about JJ. He and Embiid from the mid range and Seth Curry from 3 now are the first Sixers in a long time have been pretty sure that every shot is going in when they're shooting it. So
yeah, I feel like Tobias in the post right now. I feel if he's
Yep.
even if he's got somebody blanket on him, it just seems like it's going in.
that's a good
I'll
call.
also say for Seth, I think that the Josh Richardson trade itself was the right
Yeah.
trade. It felt like a little bit just like skill for skill, like we're just adjusting what it's going to be. But I think it's super helpful, and I do wonder if a Kyle Lowry trade happens. Seth's here for 2 more years after this on a really great contract. I do wonder, like, do we move him to the bench and he becomes that kind of thing? Do you shake up? Like,
Yeah.
what? I'm interested to see what the next 2 years of Seth's Sixers tenure looks like. But he's super helpful to the team, and I'm interested to see how it goes.
Yeah, I agree. And honestly, I actually feel good because I always kind of like Josh Richardson as a guy. I wanted him to be better than he was, but he's played better for the Mavs the last couple of weeks as they've played better. So that's good. I didn't want him to be some Mavs fans hated him pretty solidly for the first couple of months, and I didn't want him to have a bad season. So, I like winning the trade, but I did kind of like Josh Richardson. Mike, we were doing an interview on Carl Landry Record Club earlier this week, Mutlu and I, and we had a gentleman named Honus on from the band Man Man, and he is a Ricky listener. And we did about an hour on his music. And then at the end, he was like, all right, I have some Ricky questions for you now. And the very first question was, so tell me about your ring. And I was like, what are you talking about? And he was like, you didn't get your engagement ring from LL Pavorsky, did you? Tell me about buying it. And I was like, of all things he wanted to talk about. It was if I got my ring. Now, I did not get Val's ring from LL Pavorsky. Val's ring was prior to the LL Pavorsky relationship, though. Well, that's a long story. I don't feel like getting into. Though I have got her a lot of jewelry from LL Pavorsky, and I wish I'd got my ring from LL Pavorsky, though hers is beautiful. In any case, if you're getting a ring, don't make the same mistake I did. Make the same good decision that 211 Rights to Ricky Sanchez listeners have made. They have gotten rings from engagement rings from LL Pavorsky, even if they didn't want to get engaged. They just felt like it was a good decision to make. He is a great guy. I actually have to drop off something to him this week. I have to drop off those Only Rockets podcast t-shirts that he wanted that he can give to Rights to Ricky Sanchez listeners when they buy jewelry. Look, like buying an engagement ring, it's a weird process having gone through it before. You're looking at jewelry. You don't know if it's good or fucking even real or anything, and it's expensive. So going to a guy like LL, that's one of our guys that you can trust, is a good thing. He does everything by appointment only now. So whether you want to do it on the phone, on the internet, in person, whatever, appointment only. When I'm dropping off the t-shirts, he sent me an appointment marker for it. That's a true story. So I will be the only person there when I drop them off. If you want to make an appointment, Lee at llpavorsky.com or 215-627-2252 or tweet at him at llpavorsky, a generous supporter of our charities, the Providence Animal Center and Coded by Kids. LL Pavorsky Jewelers.
The real story is Spike tried to get his engagement ring at LL, and LL has too high of standards of clientele.
Wow.
That's the real story.
That is
whole
crushing.
Timing situation.
That's crushing. And then final starter, I'll start off with the grade. Danny Green, veteran presence, great corner 3 shooter, knows where to be on defense, will eventually hit a game winner. 3 of them.
You said 3.
3. Played 50 minutes in that and shot like 75 threes in that game where they only had 7 players. He's a warrior. I'm glad he's on the team. A+.
Danny, sweet guy. Come on. I went to say that about Tobias also, and I feel this about Danny and Korkmaz. And maybe it's just a defensive strategy and a choice that Doc has them make, or Dan Burke, or whoever runs the defense. When on those pick and rolls, when the defenders in the corner like pinch in to help on rollers, I feel like they just drift off shooters too much, and it's like aimless to me. And Danny does it, but also Tobias does it, and Korkmaz does it. Like Ben and Matisse can do it because they can recover so fast. Mm-hmm. But too often it feels like, hey, we're helping a little, but not enough to actually help, and we're just drifting off a shooter so that they're now open. Like there's this like aimless middle that feel like it helps nobody, and I feel like that's something that I want to get corrected. Where it's like there's not like a big move that they made to get open. It was just you helped off him too much. That wasn't like stopping the ball. It was just enough to make that pass available. So that's something that I want that I'm thinking about.
Yeah, like that cheating that players seem to do, not just for the Sixers, that never seems to help anybody.
Yeah.
You know, like they're always trying to put themselves in a slightly better position to make a move that they never make, that they never do. So I agree.
Yeah,
with
and that's
that.
the thing about like Ben and Matisse is that they will make those plays, and Danny
Right.
does sometimes too. Danny will dig down and get his hand on a ball and turn somebody over. But that's the thing about
Danny-
Ben, like watching him like commit to a turning over. He's done it a couple times. He did it with Cantor in a Portland game, and he did it with Willie Cauley-Stein on that dribble handoff behind, like when he came up behind him and took it from him. I like the like decisiveness that Ben plays with on defense, and I feel like Tobias and Korkmaz especially are not like defense first players, so they don't have that like they're more reactive instinct wise, and I feel like too often there's just like an aimlessness in there that I would like to like clean up.
Yeah, Danny is so similar to Covington defensively.
Yeah,
like
he is.
incredibly similar, and part of why I like him. He fits my. I have two types, and he's one of them. Shake.
Interesting season for Shake. He went.
Yeah.
He couldn't miss. He was the best player I've ever seen at the beginning because of just seeing a guy like dribble and shoot into a shot and score in the half court. It was just like, it was surreal to watch it. And also the expectations, like he played last year and then started a playoff game, but it was still like how many, he had that Clippers game. How real is it? And I think, settling into the sixth man role, even though the shot has come and gone and been a little bit like, not dependable and a little like concerning, as far as like, well, is this a Sixers-ing type of thing that's going to happen that Shake's going to figure out how to shoot? Or is the ball heavier when it gets into his hands for some reason? I think generally like he's going to be a sixth man of the year candidate for this year and for a long time if they keep him off the bench. And I would love to see how Shake develops. Like I do think that regularly he's a good enough shooter and a good enough defender and a very solid creator for himself, that I think those skills and he's big, he's 6'5", that lead me to believe like he could be a starter in this league for a long time. I want to see how much of a like creating for others he does, which he doesn't do a ton of. Like I feel like I would like to see his vision improve on like kicking out to shooters on those drives. He's gotten better at like lobs to Dwight or whoever is rolling with him. But I'd like to see like him finding guys a little bit more in good spaces. But there's also not a lot of shooters out there on the court with him when he plays generally. So it's a lot of him get his own bucket. But I love Shake, and I think, especially the contract that he's on is the best contract in the league. And I'm interested to see how he develops and grows his game. Because if this is all he is, if he's going to do this and be like a bench scorer and a decent off-ball shooter, then great. But I feel like there's more there.
I agree.
I just love him so much.
Give him a grade for this season.
I'll say A-. I'll say A-. That's probably a little generous, but how good he was early, and then he got hurt a little bit, and he's still like second round pick. Started his first year on a two-way. Like I'm still like glowing in how legitimate of a player he is.
I think my expectations are now high of him, which they've changed, obviously. Because of the three young guys, the three young quote assets, Shake, Maxey, and Thibault, I would be least willing to give up Shake still by a mile, actually.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah.
I think I would have him at a B or B-, but only because I think he's capable of more. He does look like he's looking for, and I think this is the fault of the team a little bit too, what exactly one of the negatives of Rivers seeming to mix up who's playing with who all the time is that, at least for Shake Milton, it was very clear what he was supposed to do early in the season, and it's a little bit less clear now, I think. And I think he gets, like when he is doing his get buckets for himself thing and it's the wrong time for it, man, it looks like a mess. It looks like he's in his own world. But when it's working, when he's supposed to be doing it, or when he's just sort of playing off ball and hitting shots, he looks great. So I just think he's capable of more than he's done this year. Obviously, I don't think he'll be exactly as good as he was for the first 10 games of the season, but I think that is closer to what he is capable of doing than what it's been since then. So
and the thing I'll say additionally about Doc is what I love about him is like he really rides the hot hand as far as closing lineups go. I think it's going to be Ben Embiid and Tobias, but those two other spots are really for whoever is playing the best and is needed in the matchup. I think Matisse is always there for defense, but like Shake gets in there, Korkmaz gets in there. Sometimes Maxey has gotten in there, even if it's not just Seth and Danny. I think it's a nice thing that like rewards high level play, and I think keeps other guys engaged.
Yeah, I agree completely. And it seems like when I just remember this from talking to Ike, when it seems like a player is rewarded for playing well and then held accountable for not playing well, it reflects well on the other teams and on the other players, and it keeps like sort of trust in the coach. And I think Doc has done that, I think, and I think it keeps everyone sort of knowing that if they play well, they can get back on the court. Even the next guy we talk about, when Korkmaz has been good this year, he has literally saved games. He has had halves that have saved games. I think he's got the quickest release on the team. He actually made a floater this year. I'm going to give Cork a B. I know that sounds high, and I favor him, but based on what the expectations are for him, even the fact that he has a spot in this rotation sometimes I think is a positive thing about him. So I'm at a B with Ferk. I'm fine with Ferk so far this year.
I got to go lower. I think last year he took a step forward, and I think it's hard to argue that he has not taken a step back. Mm-hmm. Some of that is just shooting, and hopefully it'll normalize, but he's shooting worse from 3, down from 40% to 34.5%. He's shooting worse from 2, down from 48% to 45%. I think the defense is improved. I don't know if that comes across in the numbers, but I do think that I think he seems to have a better handle on where to be and how to get by, even if he's physically overmatched sometimes. But it's tough. He's there to shoot, and he hasn't been shooting that well, so I think it's harder to give him anything other than like a C plus. But there's been hot nights for sure, and I love a hot Korkmaz night for sure, and I love the pump fake, all that stuff. I want him to succeed. I'm curious if they trade him before the deadline, just because he's expiring, and it might be time for him to move on. But I think he can help this team. I think he could. He certainly has a chance to play playoff minutes.
Maxey, you first.
Maxey's kind of I would say on the season, I would say not good. Like there has been on court, his production has been, I would say, poor, and I think that he is rightfully mostly out of the rotation. But as far as they drafted him at 21 and how I project the rest of his career to go, I feel very positive. So I think it's kind of a mix of that. I think he just has a lot to learn and improve, but I think there's like a special nature to his game, like a different kind of like speed plus herky jerky plus like motor is a really good combo. I'd love to see like how his vision improves. The biggest thing is like, will he shoot? Will he get to the line? Will he be a willing catch and shoot guy? All that stuff. So I think on the season I'd give him like a C plus. He did have that 39-point game, which is pretty dope. Even with like 4 other teammates or whatever. But I would say he's rightfully out of the rotation. I mean, he's a rookie, and he played 1 year at Kentucky, and he's got a lot to work on. But I feel very hopeful for the rest of his career.
Yeah, I think so too. When he's been good, he's shown flashes of what he can be, and I think based on what I expected, I think a B or a B plus is actually warranted, because he has shown everything that I would have hoped that he was capable of. His play on the court hasn't been anything more deserving than a C, or C minus even, but But I think given what we expect from him, I think it's been a win. Like the draft pick is a win. He's valuable. He'll be a good player if they keep him. He's valuable if they trade him. So,
yeah. And the floater is just like a cool shot. And
Yeah.
when he finishes around the rim, he does it in like a cool way. It feels like he just gets to his spots in a nice way, and then like kisses off the glass and stuff. I think he's going to get more foul calls later in his career, but the lack of foul calls he gets from all the drives he does is, in the short term concerning, and I think that's why he's not playing. But I think he'll get there.
Dwight is, I mean, bench players are not always good. Look, he's a vet minimum. He's been fine at doing what he does. I think even with all of the things that he doesn't do well, that saying that he's one of the best backup centers in the league is actually an easy statement to make, and I would stand behind that. He isn't perfect for the team, given what Ben is, but that's not Dwight Howard's fault. No one, no one. He's hit 4 3-pointers. So I would not feel, if he only has to play 8 to 10 minutes a game in the playoffs, I'm fine with him doing that, honestly. Like, he's been a B for me. I know he's maddening and he's fucking frustrating, and he's the worst free throw shooter I've ever seen, visually looking at it. But I don't know. He's been fine. He's been, based on what I expected, he's been fine.
I do trust him from 3 more than I trust him from the line for some reason.
I think that's fair.
Yeah, I mean, as a backup center, when Embiid's been out, like, his deficiencies are really on full display. But I think you can say that about most backup centers, especially coming in after a guy who is so much better than everybody else. So I would say that he's been okay. There's been good pros and cons. There's good and bad. It's the full Dwight experience. His teammates seem to like playing with him still. Joel likes him. When he's engaged and doing his best, he is like a real nuisance for the other team. So I think that's the best. I would like to upgrade. I don't think that Dwight needs to go. I just think kind of what the Lakers had the option last year of, okay, it's not a Dwight and JaVale series. We're going to use AD at the 5.
Right.
And that's an advantage that the Sixers don't have with Embiid out, because small ball, Ben and Tobias and Matisse just isn't quite there. So I would like to have a second option for when, okay, this isn't a Dwight game, let's pivot to this. And so whether that's PJ Tucker or Bielitsa or a couple other guys that we've talked about, it would be nice to have that option. I don't think Dwight needs to be like stricken from the rotation. I just think it needs to be, there needs to be more versatility in Doc's ability to make decisions.
Yeah, I agree. We've talked about PJ Tucker so often. I don't want to and Bielitsa. I don't want to get into it until they actually sign him. But there was a rumor again this week, and everybody's complaining that he's like, his stats are bad this year. There's no way that dude wants to play for that fucking team anymore.
Yeah,
they stink.
I mean, how many times we have to do it? How many times we have to do the thing where like the older guy is bad, and like for a team that sucks and just like clearly doesn't give a shit, and they go to a good team and they're like, oh my god, this guy is good still. Like, it's happened over and over again.
I have no doubt that PJ Tucker has 25 good regular season games and a playoff series left in him. I like zero doubt that he would be a fine small ball 5 for the Sixers, regardless of what his stats are this year. Like, there's no fucking way that he wants to. You want to talking about a guy, by the way, who plays so hard every play. He wants to play for this bullshit team that's losing fucking 20 straight games. Like, no. He's the one guy that's left. No, he doesn't want to be there. No offense to any of the Rockets, but I would have no qualms getting PJ Tucker, even given his play. Thibault, you first.
Tough. I mean, it's also hard to argue that his offense has not taken like a little step back, just because he's missed more shots. Last year, I think he started out pretty hot from 3 and then cooled off, and he's never had that really like hot, couple weeks of play here. But I do think his defense has improved. You can look at his steal and block numbers; they're up year to year. And I think he is just a really special defender. We've talked about it a bunch, and I think that they trust him in a ton of defense spots. They trust him if especially in the second and third quarter, like if a guy is hot and they want to save Ben for the end with him, they just put Matisse on him and he pretty much shuts him down. Like it's happened with a bunch of guys that he just makes guys uncomfortable with his length and anticipation and ability to contest shots even from behind. And it's really cool to have a weapon like that. It's like a really, like he's certainly limited. We've obviously know that, but like it's really like having like a very devastating like lefty reliever that you don't want to put out there against right-handed hitters. But like there's a lot of good lefty hitters in baseball that you're happy to when you have like one guy that you can be like, all right, shut this guy down. And I think that's Matisse. I think I'd be interested. I'm looking forward to seeing if he ever makes an offensive leap, if he can make his game into, now he was a worse offensive player than this guy in college, but if he can make his game into like what OG Anunoby has become offensively, that would be incredible.
It sounds possible.
Yeah, but I think he's a guy that works hard, and you can see that like developing, like he's cut his turnovers down from 15% to 10% this year. Part of that I think is probably just like trying to do less, but I would love to see can that handle develop? Can he attack a closeout? Like he's had a couple plays where guys have the ball swung to him and he's just gone right to the rim. He's fast, he's long. So I'd love to see like, can you do a couple more simple things and open it up? We'll see. But right now, as far as lefty relievers go, like it's cool to have him there, so you can just stick him on somebody.
I'm gonna be a little harder on him. They traded up to get him, and he's unplay. I'm not gonna crush him or anything, and I don't disagree with anything that you said at all. But they traded up to get him, like, and this is a condemnation of the organization as Matisse Thybulle is still what Matisse Thybulle is, and I've said this before, but as a 4-year senior, he scored 8 points a game in college. Somebody should have questioned whether he was a capable offensive player or not. And he's okay sometimes, but he's basically unplayable offensively. He's the worst offensive player on the whole team. And, you know, you might be able to your point about lefty reliever, you might be able to throw him in for 6 minutes in a game of a playoff game, and that's helpful. But he needs to be better than that. Like they don't have the luxury of him being like a gadget player, I think. So he's got to take a jump to playable on offense. He really does. And it's nothing more than him getting, honestly, I don't care if he does anything else than learn how to shoot spot up threes at a reasonable clip. And when I watch him shoot, it does not look like his mechanics are so fucked that he shouldn't be able to do that. Like when he's making shots, everything looks fine. He looks like a incredibly capable shooter. So all I would want from him in the offseason is shoot 1 trillion three-pointers and get with a shot coach and make it perfect, and then learn when there's nothing there how to move the ball. And I think
learn about like cool video transitions that he could sort of put into his vlogs. That would be cool.
Talk to CJ.
I do think that the Matisse, like watching him visually, I think it seems like there's, over the last 3 weeks or so, it feels like there's a more confident shooter there. There's some things that have rimmed out. Like, I'm not going to parse everything, but it just seems like, you know, he started off, he was injured for most of camp, right? He was in and out of the rotation early, and now he's like settled in. And I think the defense is great. I think he's extremely helpful, especially in lineups when Embiid's not in. He essentially plays he's the defensive anchor in non-Embiid lineups just because of how much that offenses have to account for him. And so the shooting, I think, is coming on. My prediction, based on nothing but hope and my eyes, is that after the All-Star break, Matisse goes on like a bit of a shooting run and like has a nice month where he shoots like weirdly 45%. And that's not going to hold up, obviously, but I think he's due for a good month, and I feel like he's put the work in to get there.
Mike, I know you know this because you're a markets guy, but the real estate market is booming right now.
Sure.
You have any comments on that?
The LA housing prices are insane.
Yeah, that's fucking nuts. LA is crazy. Yeah.
No thanks.
Yeah, no thanks. So, but Delaware, thanks. So when the housing market is crazy for one main reason, mortgage rates are super low. So if you're thinking about buying, now's a great time to buy it. If you want to buy a house, the Process Realtor, Adam Kasabi is the guy, KSEBE, processrealtor.com. Adam was just focusing on the Delaware beaches, but no, he has a whole team now. They're focusing on all of Delaware. So from northern Delaware, Newcastle County, that's like Wilmington, all the way down to the beaches, he's got somebody for you. So Adam's the beach expert. There are a lot of advantages to buying in Delaware rather than Jersey if you're looking to get a beach house. And now is a good time to do it. Get away from people, have a place to go. Mortgage rates are low. Delaware beaches are not like annoying and crowded like Jersey beaches. The house prices are way cheaper, and property taxes, you're talking about like 10% of what Jersey property taxes are. The same size house that you would pay $10,000 or $15,000 a year in property taxes in Jersey, you're going to pay $1,000 or $1,500 a year in Delaware. So if it's that, if you want to buy a house in like Wilmington, if you want to sell your house in Wilmington and buy a house down in the Jersey beaches, he'll pay $1,000 of your moving expenses. And if you want to get a house anywhere else, if you're looking to finally dive into that booming real estate market, whether it's Jersey, PA, anywhere you are, go to Adam. He will find the right person for you. Also, if you want to refinance like I did, Adam helped me out, got me to his refinance team. They took care of me. I'm now got I think a 2.75% rate on my mortgage, which is like nothing. Free money. 302-864-8643, 302-864-8643, or adam@processrealtor.com. The Kasabi team, based out of Long and Foster in Bethany Beach, and they cover every square inch of Delaware. Adam Kasabi, the official realtor of The Process. Two quick ones I think are obvious, and then we'll get to the rest of the stuff. Isaiah Joe, I'm incredibly encouraged by what I've seen and excited for his career. I would give him an A- for what I've seen on the court. He's going to be a legit player. Yeah,
totally. I think his defense is better than I thought it would be. Even though I watched a lot of Isaiah Joe tape at Arkansas, and the shooting is real. He's one of the few guys in this team that will just like straight up let it fly. Like he's going to, and he will be that person. The question is like, obviously we talk about him getting stronger all the time, but like, is there more to his offensive game? And I kind of think that there is. I think that he's got a pretty decent handle. Yeah. I think he's got some decent vision. I think he's fun in transition. He can get up a little bit. We haven't really seen him rise up much for dunks, but I think he'll be able to do that. I think there's a potential to be like a really good player in here. There was rumored that the Sixers were going to take him at 21. Obviously, they promised him, 3 GM regimes ago. But
they love fucking promising guys.
They do. They really do. But I think he's good, and I think he'll be, if he doesn't get moved in some trade, I think he will be a part of this team for a long time. And I think if they end up moving Maxey in like a Kyle Lowry trade, then I think you'd feel good about, well, we're not just like devoid of young guys now, because I think Isaiah Joe is on a good contract, and with a decent bit of upside. So I think that would be, I'd feel more comfortable doing that because of, even though they don't play the same position, just like having young guys, young wings, young guards that are willing to get in there and fly around. I think it's exciting to have young guys with potential all the time. And
finally, Mike Scott, A for vibes, D for on court. He's been better of late, I know he's been injured, but has looked like the worst version of himself for much of the season. Love him.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, had COVID, been injured, had that knee thing that seemed to linger forever.
Yeah.
A+ for vibes, legitimately. Like you watch, anytime Mike does anything, it feels like the whole bench is so excited for him.
Yeah.
Anytime he makes a shot, the bench is like going crazy. Like I feel like he's everybody's guy on the team. I think his defense has been better than last year, especially once he's gotten his legs back under him. And when he is wide open, I do trust him to take shots. It's just a matter of like, he's not a guy that can take shots where he's moving around. Like he is a really, really very standstill shooter. And so I think he'll be moved this year, or at the very least, I don't think he's going to be in the playoff rotation. But good guy to have around. It's tough to argue with that.
Still feel like he could hit 3 threes in a row in a playoff game when we needed it, if he had to get on the court. Like I wouldn't be shocked if it happened,
Yeah, in a world where like Ben or Tobias is dinged up or something.
Yeah.
I think that's right.
Yeah. All right. Let's go to the hard to stomach YouTube comment of the week. I actually have two. There were so many good ones. Thanks. Subscribe. Leave us a comment. Smash that subscribe button. Brought to you by Kinetic Skateboarding. I think this is the first week in like 4 weeks that I haven't bought something from Kinetic. I mentioned the gear that they sell is awesome, and it's getting warm outside. And if you want skateboard stuff, obviously, they're your spot. They also get these, I've mentioned this before, they get these sort of like limited run of every brand shoe. And they get the Nike ones all the time. And they always post them on their Instagram. And I always feel bad for Ben from Kinetic when they do these raffles for these Nikes, because I know that people are maniacs. So I want to give credit to Ben and Kinetic for dealing with maniac Nike people as they do the raffles. Use promo code Dave Silver for 9.1% off your first order at kineticskateboarding.com. This comes from Riddles Ugg, the hard to stomach YouTube comment of the week. I just got to know, is Mike a stoner? It's in the eyes if he is. But he's always just got that laid back and really tired looking all the time. Then I retract my possible insinuation. But history is littered with funny guys that have a history of substance and mind-altering compounds which worked in their favor. Love to be a fly on the wall sometimes. I get a good chuckle almost every pod. When I first got into the Sixers in 2016, I started by going back to your first pods all the way through current. Got your merch and wear it proudly. Cheers, by the way, from way, way out of the Outback. Do not change. Cheers, guys.
No, I don't. I don't wake up on a weekend morning and start smoking before I do this podcast. I think I do not look at the video as it's happening.
Right.
As sort of a conscientious objector to having to be on screen. So my effort level is very low on for the fans on the YouTube.
Yeah.
So I'm just looking at my computer, and I think maybe something about like the streaming situation makes my eyes look like I'm high, but it's not happening. Sorry.
Well,
guys. I wish I was.
I think it's also this year it's a combo of the hair and
the hair. Yeah, the hair stuff. The hair definitely adds to it.
And it's earlier where you are, so if you're like slower as the podcast starts, there is like just tired mic can sound like high mic. So
yeah, and I generally have my eyes don't open much generally. Like when I smile for pictures, like my eyes are like very squinty, and so I think I just don't open my eyes very much at any time. I could fall asleep at any given moment. I really want to present that possibility to the world that if I'm just barely hanging on.
Funny story. I don't think I've ever told this. A year and a half ago, maybe 2 years ago, I got a medical marijuana. I'd only smoked marijuana one time ever, once on my honeymoon, and I got a medical marijuana card. I was like, oh, this is fucking easy. But I'll try this. That way I won't drink. It didn't last very long. I didn't like it, but whatever. But the 3 or 4 times I've ever been to a dispensary in Philadelphia or the suburbs, I won't name names of the places, they were all great. Every person I purchased from, everything was like very normal, and then at some point they'd go, hey, excuse me, hey, love the pod. And I'd be like, oh no.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and it's great, and like there's nothing shameful about it. If you want to do that, go ahead. But I do think it's funny. Like you walk in there and you do feel kind of nervous, and you're like, all right, I'm anonymous here. And there's always like the Fight Club-ish head nod. Love the pod. The last one I was at, it was during the pandemic, so it was you would curbside pickup, and the guy came over, brought me my change, and he's like, hey man, love the pod. Oh God, so. Shout out to all those guys. Yeah.
I've never been high for a podcast, just the muscle relaxer after I got smushed on the court. That's the only time.
Did I ever tell you that I was once and I lost concentration?
I get that feeling sometimes. Sometimes I'm talking and you ask me a question, I'm like, I think I just said that. Maybe he's high.
It was only one time. I was like, because I used to like to have a drink when I was doing it. And I was like, all these calories. I'll try like weed. And you were talking, and it was this feeling of if I heard what you were saying, and I was concentrating, but none of the words were landing. And you finished, and I think I made pretend there was something wrong with the connection because I had no idea what was going on. The other, I'm done with that, by the way. I don't like how it makes me feel. Again, no offense to anyone who does. And the other YouTube comment, just because I thought it was good. I told my brother, a casual Sixers fan, this is a Bleed Orange 2332. I told my brother, a casual Sixers fan, that he should listen to the pod this morning. And I'm only just now realizing how impossible it is to recommend this show when it starts with, quote, an update on the Mike Dream tattoo with AI Dawkins and Ruth Bader Ginsburg. So, a few random things wanted to mention. I've never seen WandaVision. I'm told that it's a Marvel show is what it is, right? It's a Marvel Universe show. Very popular, but in the most recent episode, we got a lot of tweets that there was a Ship of Theseus mention, and most of our listeners who mentioned this learned of the Ship of Theseus from Thought Experiment, from the Ricky, from when we talked to Sean Carroll 5 years ago. So just want to, I don't know if, do you watch that show?
We actually started it last night,
Okay.
so I haven't gotten to the Ship of Theseus reference, but it is funny to imagine that we're educating people by accident on like one thing. People have learned like 1.5 things from this podcast.
Yep, and Ship of Theseus being one of them is very funny. Would like to give a shout out to whoever hacked B-Ball Paul's Twitter like 4 different times to sell PlayStation 5s.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, I mentioned yesterday, I think his password is probably B-Ball Paul. I mean, I don't know how it.
Right.
I don't know how it happens 4 times, but
there's a very good chance that B-Ball Paul is the MVP of the G League this year.
He's played great, and the Blue Coats are winning again. They've won 3.
They're winning.
In a row.
They're in the playoffs. They're going to be in the playoffs. He's getting just like double doubles, blocks and steals. The shot still looks weird, but it's going in at a pretty good clip. I also love Rajon Tucker and would love to see him make it on this team next year. But yeah, B-Ball Paul, man, good for him. That might be the answer to backup center in the future, which is very exciting.
And then the final thing I wanted to ask you about in regard to these things, and we'll do a couple of mailbag questions, is so we've mentioned before, I used to be in the, what's it called? It's not called Legacy, the fantasy league that you're in.
Execs.
Yeah, the Execs League. And you know, like you carry year to year. And I was in it for, I think, 2 years. And in my last year, I won the championship as an owner with Legs as my GM. And I was a real dick at the end, mostly because I was furious that they had the Exec of the Year voting. Legs did not get 1 vote and beat all 3 people who did get votes in the playoffs. I thought it was insulting. I left after that, but Legs has stayed in the league. And Legs told me there's a little bit of a trade controversy going on.
There always is. There's always something. Legs has been involved in. There's been at least three big controversies, fantasy trades, and it's always Legs. It is legitimately always Legs. There's one with me. There's one with this other guy. And then Legs traded like his whole team and like, you know, members of his family for Russell Westbrook a couple of years ago. It was like everything. It was picks. It was cap space. It was ridiculous. Everybody texting about Legs all the time. Being like, oh my God, Legs. You see this Legs trade? Jesus Christ.
I would just like to say,
guy just, you know, a very very low key guy to generate so much controversy.
He loves making trades. He just loves making trades. I would say this. I've been in fantasy leagues where people are like looking to reverse trades because they're unfair. The only way that should ever be done is if you legitimately suspect that there's funny business between the 2 people. But it does not seem like there was funny business in this one. Legs just took advantage of a new owner. Yeah,
he's my friend Trevor. I think there's a learning curve in this league, and it was at the trade deadline. It's a whole thing.
If they fucking reverse the trade, I'm going to make this an issue. They can't reverse the trade.
Talk to John.
Fuck it, that league. Anyway, couple mailbag questions. Writes to Ricky Sanchez at gmail.com. Writes to Ricky Sanchez at gmail.com. One basketball, one non-basketball. From Liam. Am I off base, or did it seem like LeBron and KD picked teams similar to both of your tastes in basketball players? LeBron went with playmakers like Luka, Joker, and Giannis, while KD went with scorers, Embiid, Levine, and Harden. They even both made sure for Gobert to go last, which was incredible. By the way, there could have been 100 fucking more players to pick from, and Gobert still would have gone last. I feel like Laker Mike would have drafted a team either very close or similar to LeBron, and Spike would have definitely drafted a team close to KD's picks. One caveat being Spike, I hope, would not have taken Kyrie first, but Mike definitely would have never drafted him regardless. How do you feel about that?
It's interesting. I do think that KD drafted more of a team. LeBron just kind of drafted like all the like generational players a little bit. But also like, you know, Luka, Jokic, Giannis, Steph, LeBron is just like an insane. It's not a lineup that like goes together, but it is just like an insane group of people to put on the team. As much as I don't want the All-Star game like probably shouldn't have happened. It is like, you know, it's gonna be cool. If they play hard, if it's an Elam ending, hopefully it's fun. Covington in the skills challenge could be cool. LeBron taking Ben every year is cool. LeBron never drafting Embiid is notable, I would say.
Well, I had always said there's CAA clutch stuff, and there definitely is, you know.
Is Booker a clutch guy?
I don't know.
I can't remember.
I don't know.
Yeah. Well, and I do, but obviously the Jazz, everything that's happened with the Jazz over the last couple of days has been great. And I'm not like, I don't have, like, I love Donovan Mitchell out of Louisville. I don't have massive issues with Gobert. I think Joe Ingles rules. I think it's cool that Conley's getting a shot.
I'm a big
Boyan Bogdanovic is awesome.
Yes.
It's a fun team, but like, and I think Quinn Snyder is like a maniac in like a fun way. But like even like a Clarkson reclamation project, like I respect it. Like a guy doesn't miss a shot. And I've always loved George Niang ever since Iowa State. But like, man, that team and the fan base, and now Donovan Mitchell being like the rookie of the year thing with Ben was always so stupid. And then now
they won.
It's just like he's saying that they won. Come on, man, what are we doing here? You're embarrassing yourself. You're the best. You guys are the best team in the league right now. Like, you don't have to be. There's not like a friggin' conspiracy out to get you. Everyone's fucking looking for a conspiracy about themselves. You're the best team in the league. You're fine. Chill the fuck out.
Yeah. You know, Donovan Mitchell was high on my.
I didn't answer the question. I kind of went all over the place.
Well, that's your thing.
There you go.
Donovan Mitchell was high on my YouTube big board. Rudy Gobert is an absolute fraud. The Jazz have zero chance of winning the championship, and they're both, to your main point, embarrassing themselves. Like, the refs do not give a fuck about the Utah Jazz. Like, you are not the fucking the bad boy Pistons or the fucking Raiders in the 80s or something, where the officials or the Broad Street Bullies, where the officials are out to get you. You sound like fucking morons. Nobody cares.
I mean, you have an offense, like, they're calling out like foul disparities. Like, you have an offense built around like swinging the ball around the perimeter and taking threes. You're not going to get to the line as much, and your center is not a guy who's like making moves inside to get fouled and get to the rim. Like, it's just not happening. That's why you're not getting fouled as much. It's successful, but don't just start crying to the refs because they're not calling fouls when it's like, yes, you're shooting threes. You're shooting the most threes. What are you doing?
Yeah. They sound like fucking morons. It's the dumbest shit I've ever heard.
This idea that there's this conspiracy against white people. Yes, everyone hates Utah, finally.
Yeah.
It's being seen. Come on. Get over yourselves.
Yeah, please. Couple more. There's no question here. I just thought you needed to hear it. We've gotten a few of these recently, like people that have grown up with the pod, but this one takes a very disturbing turn. Hey, Spike and Mike, my name is Dylan. I started listening to the pod when I was around 15. I'm about to turn 21. About 5 years ago, I won tickets to a charity event on WIP. Me and my older brother showed up in Eagles t-shirts just to find everybody there in button-down shirts and dress pants. Then we saw you walk in and made sure you knew that you could indeed leave it to the Ricky fans to be underdressed. Since then, I've lost girlfriends, friends, and beloved Sixers, but the Ricky has always stayed. You could say the Ricky has grown up with me and is one of the only things that has been here the entire time. With that being said, you have no idea how bad I want this tattoo. I'd offer to pay toward the charity, but I'm a broke college student making enough money to pay rent and eat pasta every night. But I will do something absolutely ridiculous to have Joel Dawkins, AI, J-Roll, and of course Ruth Bader Ginsburg enshrined on my body forever. And believe it or not, it probably wouldn't even be my most ridiculous tattoo. I mean it. I will do something ridiculous, and I don't care what it is.
I'm sold. He got the sale from me. I'm fine. I'd give it to him.
Well, can I explain it? He's offering to do something ridiculous in addition to getting the tattoo.
Yeah, I think the tattoo itself is nice.
I love it. Dylan, I wish tattoos were easier to do, took less time, and less expensive, because I would love to give them to the 10 or 15 people who have volunteered for this. It's just not
10 or 15?
Oh, easily. Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah. It's just impossible. There's not enough time. It's like Tim Pangburn, the guy that we're doing it, who owns Art Machine. I don't know exactly what he charges anymore, but you could say that a tattoo artist of his esteem could charge anywhere from like $200 to $400 an hour. Like this tattoo is easily 3 hours. So
Jesus.
Yeah, so this is not like a cheap thing. And I don't have like an army of 10 tattooers who are there just to all do the same one. So we'll figure something out. And finally from Nick, salutations, my favorite podcast duo. A listener suggested a couple pods ago that the Sixers should maybe trade Danny Green for a longer-term contract as to not lose the salary for trade purposes. You guys suggested Oladipo, Tucker, now Kyle Lowry. What would you think about trading Green, Ferguson, Bradley, and several seconds for Eric Gordon and PJ Tucker? Gordon's contract is pretty rough, 4 years, $75 million. But the last year is only guaranteed if his team wins a championship, which is interesting. He'd be an offensive upgrade over Danny for sure, and given what we've seen for Fertitta, getting off that money owed to Eric Gordon would be a major plus for them. I think it improves the team without giving up significant capital. What do you think?
Well, it's interesting. I mean, Daryl signed him to that contract.
Right.
So at least part of him, it's an interesting clause. I didn't know about the championship guarantee clause. I like Eric Gordon. I always have. I think he is like a total gunner from three. He's happy. He takes it from deep. He stretches the floor, all that stuff. And I think he's thick and serviceable enough on defense where he can switch in the playoffs and kind of hold his own against whoever. And I like the occasional offense that Gordon gives you as far as like off the dribble, like getting to the rim type of thing, because he's so tough to get around. That contract is bad, and I think that I think he'd be a good fit next to Embiid and Simmons, and Tobias. But I do wonder how much Houston is willing to deal with Daryl. Like it didn't just go away in the Harden trade. I think there's still bitterness there, and I can't imagine that there's a Fertitta trade that he would do with Philly that isn't like such an out and out win for Houston. You know what I mean? I feel like he'd be very self-conscious about like anyone perceiving that he could have lost the trade to Daryl. And so I feel like it might just not happen, which is, I guess, also a concern with PJ Tucker. Yeah,
I agree with that. I love Eric Gordon, and he is sort of a conscienceless, shoot from far away 3-point shooter. And he is, to your point, like he's a pretty good ball handler. Man, I wish we could go back to the first couple of years of Eric Gordon in LA. He was fucking awesome.
And I mean, and New Orleans, like he averaged like for his career, he's been like 17 to 18, 20 points a game, like every year, shooting like a ton of volume three. The last 5 years, he shot 7 to 9 threes per game,
and from far away,
and from very deep. Like that's the thing, is that the last 2 years, Eric Gordon should be like a 40% 3-point shooter. He's only broken 40% once in his career. The last 2 years has been 31.7 and 32.8. Like that's low. That's like very low. It might be because of degree of difficulty, but like one of those years he's playing with James Harden, and so like you got to imagine some of those shots are good. So I don't know. He might not have as much lift in his legs or something. I don't know, but like he should be shooting like 38, 39, 40% from three, even on that volume. And so maybe there is just like a deadening there happening. But I think he's up to, interestingly, and I wonder if this is like a not playing in D'Antoni's offense, he's shooting a career high from two this year, 58.4%. on twos when his career average is 48% on twos. So I don't know if they've opened the court up a little bit for him and he's scoring a little bit more. I'd be interested to dig into the numbers. I truthfully haven't watched him a ton this year, but I'm intrigued by it. And in a world where Lowry would cost a lot, I think Eric Gordon wouldn't cost a lot because of the contract, and his contract timeline is already locked in with Tobias, and so I think there's value there in if you can't get Lowry or you're not willing to get him for that much more, to move Danny and stuff for Eric and think like we got him for a couple years and here's the core type of thing. I'd be interested in that.
Non-basketball question. A friend of mine recently said to me that spoons are far superior to forks. I've given this a lot of thought. While I use forks more often than spoons, I think the spoon does have a far superior VORU, value over replacement utensil. You can replace a fork with many things: eating a steak, 2 knives, eating pasta, chopsticks. Honestly, the hardest thing to eat without a fork I can think of is spaghetti. You'd probably just opt for a different pasta. But without a spoon, you'd be royally fucked. What are your thoughts if you could only have one for the rest of your life, spoon or fork?
I would agree spoon. I can do normally fork things with a spoon. And sometimes I choose it because we weirdly like lose forks all the time. We're somehow down to 5 forks, which is really tough. Like one, if we're having fork meal for 3 meals a day, then somebody's got the raw end of it at the end of the day.
You haven't gone anywhere. Where are the forks going? Yeah.
I don't know, but it's been years. It's been years of losing forks. I have no idea what's happening. I think Alyssa might be throwing them away as it's from some sort of prank. But we have 5. And then if we get new ones, it's like, all right, now we're gonna have 12. Like we're gonna have 12 forks. We're gonna have the most forks anyone's ever seen. Like it's ridiculous. But I do think, spoon, especially for like soup and cereal and that kind of thing, is more necessary than a fork is for like even if you're making like chicken or whatever, you can use grab a Brussels sprout, chicken and Brussels sprout and a spoon. You're fine. Mm-hmm. I agree with that.
Actually, last one from Hunter. Hey, Spike and Mike, longtime listener of the pod. Thanks for yada yada yada. I just like this non-basketball question. Only I'm curious whether you have an answer. What is your favorite conspiracy theory of all time? You don't have to believe it, but that would be a bonus. Do you have one?
Not generally a conspiracy theory guy except when it comes to the Sixers. And I think I've said this before on the podcast before, but I'm like intrigued by, not even intrigued, but and not enough to do any research at all. The laziest amount of intrigue to be like, why haven't we been on the moon again? That was like the late 60s. What are we doing? We're not getting back on the moon? So
I can't believe we are simpatico on this. I'm a little bit different, but the conspiracy theory that I like the best is the one that I wouldn't say I believe, but I don't not believe it, is that we faked the moon landing. Here's the only reason I think it is, the reasons I believe it to be possible. 1, it was a huge fucking deal for us to beat Russia to the moon, like an enormous deal. And our technology was not as good as theirs. 2, it would be pretty easy to fake because there's no fucking internet and people, you just put it on TV and people buy it.
No commenters below just yelling fake.
Yeah, right. And I don't totally not agree with the idea that Stanley Kubrick did it and was sort of admitting it in The Shining.
Yeah, my argument is that like any conspiracy, like there's so many like horrible things that this country and many other countries have done that are not conspiracies, that are just like this happened.
Yep.
That like a conspiracy, the idea of like people keeping things a secret and being unable to like talk about it, like I just don't think there's that many because people love to talk and love to say shit, and eventually things break. Like that's why I'm generally anti-conspiracy theory. Also because some of them are obviously highly damaging.
Yeah, I agree with you. There's just something about the moon one.
I'm there. Like I'm with you a little bit, but then I'm like, I don't know, whatever. It's probably fine.
Well, they're apparently building, like their goal now is to build an entire fucking working space station on the moon. So we'll see what happens. But you're right. All right. Well, thanks to Michael Bivens for his appearance again.
Another great one for Biv. My episode of Young Rock, Tuesday.
There you go.
8:00.
We're sure.
NBC, written by Michael Levin and Patrick Kang. It is the first episode in the Miami timeline, so there's a lot of football in it. There are, I don't know if I'm allowed to say this, but whatever. Michael Irvin is in it. Not
cool.
An actor playing Michael Irvin. And then there's, I'm pretty sure, I don't know who they end up landing on, but I think there's also actually, I'm not sure. There used to be a basketball commentator also in it. But it's cool. It's University of Miami. It's The Rock. It's fun. It's a cool show. It's on Hulu and NBC.com and set your DVRs and all that stuff, and get those Philadelphia numbers up for me once again.
Yeah. Well, the Mike episode is the one we always want to do the best. So Tuesday on NBC, or set your DVR for series recording, as Mike said. That's the easiest way to do it.
Also, shout out Daryl Morey for getting the vaccine. He just posted it this morning. It's dope.
Congrats, Daryl.
It's very exciting every time anybody gets a vaccine. It makes me very happy, and we're closing in on not being able to having to do this anymore, so I can come home and me and Sixers Adam can beat Derek and Rich at basketball in front of a crowd of people that are not having a very good time watching mediocre basketball from reporters.
The you getting on an airplane would make me happy, honestly. I would be
for sure
thrilled for that. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah. So, all right, stay safe out there. We won't talk to you until Thursday, right after the Bulls game. That's when we'll be back. So enjoy the All-Star game. Joe, Ben, don't get hurt. Are you down with TTP?
Yeah, you know lick base.
If you don't fuck with me, then I won't fuck with you.
If you don't fuck with me,
then I won't fuck with you.
But if you fuck with me,
I'm gonna fucking kill you! Time for plan B.